So, look, these are just a few learnings really, the good, the bad and the ugly from 42 Below, from Ecoya, Trilogy, and more recently MOA, which we'll share with you. It's largely export-based stories, but the learnings for export are pretty similar to the learnings we use in your local market. But they're probably just amplified when you go offshore. If things go wrong and you're exporting, they can go really wrong. But likewise, if things go right and you're exporting, they can go really right. So look, this is the first one. And so this is what we learned really from 42 Below, which was, in our view, all brands need a story. And they need a really clear story that is strong, can be passed on. And the great thing about the internet now is that great stories actually do get passed on much easier. So if you've got a strong, compelling, interesting story, it will travel much further than it would have in the past. The other thing about your story is that it needs to have real roots and credentials. It needs to have actual provenance and a real reason for being. Josh actually was winemaking in the Napa Valley when he started having a few really good craft beers from local craft beer producers at the end of the day after harvest, because on a hot day after harvest you actually feel like a cold beer. And so he was able to salvage some really good beers from the Napa Valley region. He came home after harvest, felt like a cold beer for him and his fellow winemakers, and couldn't really find a good quality, flavoursome beer. So he started making beer himself, started supplying the winemakers and then the wider community, and it grew from there. And the story was, there was some archaeologists, I think, down on the bar digging up moa bones. One Friday afternoon he thought he'd do the right thing and take some cold beer down to them. It was a hell of a hot day, and he dropped off some beer to the archaeologists, and it was driving home from there that evening that he kind of came up with the name for his beer, which is MOA, or pronounced Moa. So that's our story, and we think it's a good one to tell internationally. We think it resonates particularly in places like China. And look, unashamedly, we draw from Marlborough. Marlborough is a really well-known region worldwide, particularly in beverage. So like the beer makers in the Napa Valley, you know, we kind of ride on the coattails of a lot of the hard work that Marlborough and the wine producers has here done. A real story is not enough. You need obviously a huge amount more. And the next little point is personality. And it's true, people buy from people they like. It's true in sales. You know, when you're making a sales call, I was doing something to Dunedin the other day, you've got to get on with the person. You've got to kind of spark up an interesting conversation with that person. And you kind of got to like each other if you're going to do business with each other. And it's true with brands. And at 42 Below, someone once gave me this little kind of theory. They called it the cocktail party theory. So if you're going into a cocktail party and you don't know anybody, who do you gravitate to? Who do you want to go and talk to? Who do you want to go and spend some time with? And their view was 3 kind of key ingredients that draw you to somebody and make you want to stay talking to that with that person for some time. One is they kind of look good, they look presentable. It might be shallow, but it's true. And therefore brands need to present themselves well. They need to kind of, you know, look slick and have a good kind of set of clothes to them. They need to be educated. They can't be kind of you know, all kind of talk and no do. They actually need real credentials, and they need to speak with a bit of authority. So you want to actually speak to someone who's not talking bullshit. And the final thing is you want to be entertained. You don't want to be bored shitless talking to this person all night. And so, look, the cocktail party theory, I think, applies to brands as well. And that's why, yes, it's important you have a really good story. Yes, you've got to have integrity and all that kind of stuff. But you actually got to entertain. You've got to be interesting as a brand. And I think that's really important. And as New Zealanders, I think, as people, I think we do have a real personality. You know, if I see other brands in places like China and see them interact with distributors, there is a bit of a spark there. There is, I think, you know, the New Zealanders do get on really well with their distribution partners and market as people, but I'm not sure that always is applied to the brand. So I think brands need to entertain. In export, which I think is the crux of kind of this afternoon's discussions, you do need to support your brand. I've been called out too many times. I'll share a couple of examples with you get the order, you know, and you think, yes, we've kind of cracked it, we're sending a container up to the States, we're underway, it's all on, you know, it's going to happen now. And 2 months later, you're kind of waiting there for the next order, and kind of nothing happens, and you figure out, you know, what's going on. And yeah, well, it's sitting on shelf, it's kind of doing okay, and you realise you actually getting it on shelf is only just, it's actually just the start of the whole process. You've got to support it. Just like if we sell some beer to the local New World here at Blenheim, that's just the start as well. You can't just allow it to kind of sit there and do nothing. You've got to do some tastings, you've got to educate the staff, you've got to be part of the promotional program. All the same requirements that apply here actually apply over there. I was watching on the plane the other day coming back that documentary on Warren Buffett. I'm not sure if any of you have seen it. And there's a scene where he's talking to Bill Gates, and I think it was Warren Buffett's dad asked both Bill Gates and Warren Buffett independently to write on a bit of paper one word that they think is the secret of their success. And they can't tell each other what that word is. And both of them write the word focus. And I thought that was really interesting. And if I apply it to MOA and exports, too many times we get an inquiry from Brazil or Taiwan or Korea or the UK or France, and we go, brilliant, let's send them a bit of MOA, you know. But a couple of things happen. We're only a small company, we can't focus on all of those markets at once. We certainly can't support all of those markets at once. And you get a nice little blip at the start, and then it kind of tails off. So it's easy to get seduced by opportunity and spread really thin. Probably made that mistake far too many times actually in pretty much all our businesses. But I think the good place we're in now, say with MOA, is we've made a conscious effort to just focus on, I would say, 3 cities in China as our export strategy. And that's plenty. That's still probably not focused enough actually. And we're working really hard with distribution partners in those 3 cities, and that seems to be creating quite good growth, quite good sustainable business for us. There's starting to be a little understanding of the brand there, and that is, I guess, reminded me again that focus is so important. The right partners, perhaps another obvious one, but again, you get seduced when you're sitting in this part of the world, at the bottom of the world. You get seduced by someone calling you up and say, hey, we want to represent your brand, and you're quite chuffed with that, so you want to kind of repay that kind of inquiry by selling them a bit of MOA. But so many times those partners aren't necessarily the right partners for you. In the early days of China, we had people call us up wanting to buy MOA. We'd send them some MOA, go up to market to support it. 3 months later, couldn't actually find the MOA that we'd sent them. Who knows where it is? Export, I think I said this at the start, look, it takes twice as long as your local market and costs, you know, twice as much money, if not more. Just the travel alone, it seems to slow everything down. The size of those cities, the size of the venues, the bars that we go in are all considerably bigger, and therefore require considerably more support and more investment. And there's also a heap of risk. There's all sorts of risk, exchange rate risk, there's risk of product damage, product loss. I know at 42 Below we sent our first container of vodka, which is, you know, high value export, to Mexico, and somehow that went missing, and it was taken at gunpoint on a road. We spoke to the truck driver. His whole truck and the container of vodka got taken from him. So, you know, there's risks you have offshore that you don't have in places like Blenheim, for instance. However, whilst there's more risks, there's a heap more value as well. And you don't need proof of concept for your brand or your product in every export market of the world. Really, I think if you can prove you can export to even 1 or 2 countries, that's proof enough. That gives, I think, in the investment community, if you're looking for new capital, or if you're looking to partner up with people in other markets, big distributors worldwide, it gives them a huge amount of confidence that your brand and your skills and your people have what it takes to be a successful exporter. So that's why I think if you can focus just even on 1 export market, get that right, that speaks volumes about you and your brand.